All right.
Good morning, Norm St. Clair County.
Good morning, Tyler Steele, Mayor Pro Tem Green Mountain Falls.
In transit.
Dennis Heisey, El Paso County.
Bill Murray, Colorado Springs.
Gabe Ortega, City Fountain.
Turner Smith, Town of Rama.
Nicole Nicoletta, Mayor, Manitou Springs.
Air Force Academy.
Joel Hamilton, Fort Carson.
Rich Birchfield, representing Colonel Beck Chess from Pete.
Jason Generis, Shoover Air Force Base.
Mark Wilby, Park County Commissioner.
Daryl Glenn, El Paso County Commissioner.
Jim Law, Public Transportation Rep.
Nolan Schreiner, State Transportation Commissioner.
Neil Levy, Mayor, Woodland Park.
Rob McDonald, PPACG.
And Andy Pico, City of Colorado Springs. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. If anybody have anything in particular they'd like to change on the agenda, like to pull from consent one item.
Yes, I'd like to discuss the Sterling Ranch wastewater site application.
Okay, we'll pull that from consent and have that separately. One other item we have on the agenda is a strategic planning process. This was in response to initiative from Councilmember Gabler. She won't be here today. So we could have an introduction, or we could table it.
I think it's just an introductory information item.
Okay. I guess we'll go ahead and run through it then.
Sure, it's quick.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Entertain a motion to.
Those changes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is a public comment. Time for anyone in the public to bring an item up that was not on the agenda. Anyone care to comment on any item? Seeing none, move to consent items. We have on consent 3 remaining items. Any comments? I will entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
Approve 480 and 6.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And item 4D, if we could go ahead and bring that one up.
Pete's here. There he is. So we can, yep, there it is on screen, at least a map. So Pete can, come over to the microphone so we can record your answers, I think.
And Trustee Smith, I believe you had a question that you want to bring up on this one.
Good morning. I'm Peter Gillespie with PPACG.
Turner Smith from Town of Rama. It, has come to light that the treatment plant is not meeting the current health standards in their plant southeast of Schriever Air Force Base. And 2 questions. One, a question. When you add more to it, is that going to make it more difficult for you to meet that standard?
Well, we, in this action, are not responsible for the treatment plant per se, so I can't speak to that. Common sense, yes, down the road it gives them more wastewater to treat, but that's not within our scope of reviewing this lift station. That issue belongs to Cherokee. I don't like to not give you an answer, but that is the answer.
Fine. But it was reported in a newspaper that they had a stakeholders meeting in Monument. And as it was reported in the newspaper, let me phrase it like that.
Sure.
A Colorado Department of Health official said that it was a mistake to license it.
I would address your question to that individual who made that statement. It may have been an off-the-cuff statement. So this person said it was a mistake. Well, again, this is beyond the scope of what I'm presenting here and what we're considering here today. But that's a powerful statement from a state official to make in a rather off-the-cuff way, because these wastewater treatment plants go through a tremendous amount of engineering and public vetting. So I'm not here to defend the Cherokee wastewater treatment plant today, but I don't want to simply not respond to your question either. So. And I would say this proposed lift station, this is for a development that is down the road a little ways. I assume, as a citizen, as well as in my own position, that the the Cherokee will be addressing those issues in the time that comes. And whether the additional amount of wastewater from this proposed development will have any bearing on how they're treating the wastewater, I really don't know. I tend to doubt it. I think they have work to do regardless. So that's, without any more information, that's my 2 cents.
When you say down the road a ways, do you have a timeline on that at all?
I do not.
My understanding is that the state has given them 7 years to get it corrected. Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Any further questions?
Move approval. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? One opposed. Motion passes. Okay. Next up, CDOT monthly reports. We have a CDOT rep?
I'm right here.
Oh, there you
Morning.
are.
Came down the side.
Came down the side.
Yeah, I'll be very
You were over
brief.
there last time. So.
Yeah, I was over there last time. I thought Karen Rowe might be here this morning, but she had another meeting with our maintenance folks that she took priority. I'll be very brief. Next month, I want to come with an update with our construction for the coming spring and summer. I'll present that at the next board meeting. We've mainly got some resurfacing projects that I want to talk about, but I want to just hone in this morning with a couple projects, the Fillmore project, and Dave Watt will give an update on Cimarron. The Fillmore project is nearing completion. It's ahead of schedule. We were able to work with the contractor to do a value engineering proposal to accelerate some of the work over the weekends in the last year. So that what they did is it bought us up to 3 months of extra time. So looks like we're going to finish that project in early summer. And what you'll see over the next few months is we're going to restripe Fillmore in its final configuration, which is the diverging diamond interchange. So we're going to go out with some public messaging on how to drive a DDI. Most of it will be very intuitive to most folks. You simply just follow the curb line, the striping. Again, but we want to go out with a message soon about how to drive those, and then we'll post those on our website as well. So that project is nearing completion, which is good. And then Dave, right behind me, will give an update on the Cimarron interchange, and I'll take any questions.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
when are you going to change the lanes over to the eventual configuration? Because that's going to be really, really different for most people.
Probably in the next month. So what we'll do is, like I said, we'll restripe it in its final configuration, and then we'll come back in and put the raised medians in between where those raised medians will be in their final location. So it's almost easier to restripe it and then construct it, if you will, once it's in its final location. So we'll do that over several weekend closures to put it in its final location. Not weekend, but night closures. So we'll have very minimal disruption to Fillmore traffic, but it's something that we want to go out with a media campaign and say, hey, this is coming. It's going to work. It's going to be a little different, but you'll like it. It's going to move traffic better.
Does everyone know this is only the second time that this kind of interchange has happened? And I think people are going to react to it. I think it's going to work great, but, it's very different than people are used to.
Yeah, Region 1 up in the Denver area opened up one a few months ago that was very effective. So I think you'll see a big improvement with traffic flow. Maybe not initially because we've got to get the final signals in, but it's gone very well with the Denver project. Grand Junction had a retrofit project to a DDI that they put in about a year ago, and that one's gone well as well. So Utah's done several of these. Missouri's done quite a few. We're like actually the third one in Colorado. So Again, it's been tried, it's been proven, so I think we're going to see some big benefits, not only to I-25, but moving that Fillmore traffic east and westbound, which we see can really tie up for several minutes to get through that interchange.
Are you going to have, as part of the how to do this, kind of a sign chart for drivers as they come up, sort of give them a heads up so they don't
Some of that will be signing,
signing? Yeah.
right? Some of it will be VMS boards, variable message signs. Some of it will be, again, just to get out to the public. Here's a website. You can learn about the nuances of how to drive it. And again, it's going to be very intuitive to most people because, again, you're just following the direction of striping. That you don't even realize that you're on the other side of the road. So that's
Well, my concern kind of comes up from coming in at night.
right.
If you're not familiar with it, say if you're out of town, you hit it at night. I just took that interchange the other day at night. Just the construction was, how you get through that was terrifying enough, but I can imagine going into what you might think of the oncoming traffic would be,
Well, some of
someone who
that,
walked into it cold, in other words.
right. Some of that has been expressed by citizens as well, especially at night. But when it's in its final configuration, especially when the raised median isn't in place, you really don't have a choice but to go the direction that you're being directed to go. So at night, trucks can get turned around if they're not following that striping. It's a possibility, but it doesn't happen very often.
So if you jump a curb, you're doing something wrong?
You jump a curb, you're doing something wrong. Well said. Well said. So thanks. But in the interim, before we get that raised median up, we've got to make sure that we've got enough cones, drums out there to make sure that we're directing folks in the right place. So, but I'll note your concern. We'll make sure that we've got enough delineation up there to direct traffic, especially.
Yes.
What was what's some of the takeaways from the Denver experience of implementing the new traffic directions, and then also what were some of the initial reactions to that? I imagine that now that it's in place and it's gotten a lot better, but I imagine initially it was.
I don't think there was really any negative reaction. I think what we found was that once people drove it, they got through it and they said, that was a little different, but I'm not sure it was that different. In other words, I didn't realize I was on the other side of the road. I just followed the striping and the signing. And what is nice about a DDI is it's intuitive in the fact that if you want to turn right, you stay in the right lane. If you want to turn left, you stay in the left turn lane. So it's not confusing in that respect. So it really it did go over well. Haven't really heard any negative feedback. And again, we've got a pretty good website, not only for this diverging diamond interchange, but the one up in Denver. Put together a real nice presentation for how to drive a DDI. And I'll present that if there's interest next month.
Is part of that messaging to the public why, the benefits
Right.
of? Good.
It is. So again, it's, without getting into a lot of detail, the benefits really are that you reduce that signal time.
Right.
You eliminate left turns in that left turn phase, and you really break it down into a two-phase signal at each end of the interchange, which, again, you can get as much as 30% more traffic through a typical interchange.
That's great.
So, yes, sir.
Mark, Jason Generis from Schriever. As the installation mission support group commander there, one of my responsibilities is civil engineering and snow removal for a great part of the area there. May not be in your purview, but perhaps on a sidebar, I want to discuss a few things with you, namely the Enoch and Irwin roads, the access points to our installation there. Because of our remote and isolated nature of our base, we have challenges with the snow removal, and understand El Paso has their hands full, especially with the great number of snowfall that we have in that area. So looking at potentially an MOU, MOA, or even a P4 with El Paso, and if you could lead me in the right direction at some point, it'd be great to have that conversation with you.
I suggest that I'll give you a card. I suggest that we we talk, and maybe we can set up a meeting with our maintenance and El Paso County Maintenance, and then find out, maybe we don't need to do a formal agreement. Maybe there's already an understanding, and maybe we just need to follow through with what was understood. So,
Sounds great.
all right.
Appreciate that.
Great. Any
All
other
right.
questions?
Dave Want will be up to give a brief update on Cimarron.
Dave Watt, resident engineer in the North Program. Always come with handouts. There may have been some information in the media that folks have seen, and what that media announcement is accomplishing is to announce that we're out of what we've been referring to as Phase 0. So for the past several months, what the Kramer CDOT team has been doing is working on utility relocations, some drainage work underneath I-25. The most conspicuous feature has been the embankment work, approximately 100,000 cubic yards of material on the west side of the highway, about 100,000 yards. That material's been imported in and be able to do that work offline and allow that settlement to be taken out of the existing ground. It has settled several inches, which was what was anticipated, but that's before we're putting the improvements on it. So that's a nice feature of that mound of material that has been stacking up over the past several months. No small amount of this design-build project effort has also been the continuation of the design and completing the design of the improvements. We're about out of the design phase completely, so you'll see the Kramer team ramping up. We'll use a small R ramp there as we go into Phase 1. Phase 1 will be some work on approximately 4 bridge structures along I-25. You'll see the removal of the loop ramp in the southwest part of the interchange, and you'll see a more traditional diamond configuration for the southbound exit ramp will be coming online in Phase 1 as well. I want to emphasize that the project right now is on budget and on schedule. This is when we anticipated this switch into Phase 1, and we will be working on minimizing the inconvenience to the public, but I do want to emphasize there's going to be more traffic impacts with this effort. The good news is the 3 lanes through the project during the daylight hours. There'll be restricted lanes down to approximately 3 11-foot lanes. That's about a foot off of each typical standard lane width. Shoulder reductions down to approximately 8 feet. So there'll be a little bit more of a constricted area through the project during the daylight, but there will be 3 lanes open. And there will be a number of night closures. That will be a fairly consistent routine of taking away 1 lane or 2 lanes to allow the construction of the work to proceed on I-25, particularly the southbound. There'll be a number of traffic switches on US 24, and at one point we will have a 1-lane restriction into downtown Colorado Springs. We will keep up with the weekly e-alerts and keep up with the monthly newsletters. And while I'm not going to say that's not an inconvenience to have only 1 lane going to downtown, that is an improvement over what we had in the original RFP. Some of the discussions we'd had with the business community and what we could manage, and based on our past experiences in the area, we have been allowing a closure of Cimarron into downtown Colorado Springs. And the Kramer team was able to find a way to make that only a 1-lane, make it a 1-lane entrance, but we're not going to have a closure during the day into downtown Colorado Springs. So I think they've done a good job of laying out these improvements to minimize inconvenience to the public. Folks may recall that was our number 3 goal of minimizing inconvenience to the public. So this is an improvement over what we had laid out in the RFP. And a little bit of history back on the Cosmics project. I believe that interchange was closed for 11 months. So this is they're fitting in this better. We're fitting in this better than what we had done on some past projects. I emphasize again, we're excited about moving forward into this phase of work and seeing the improvements continue on I-25 and Cimarron. And if there are questions, I will take them.
The 1-lane closure on Cimarron, what's the period? Is that the full Phase 1, or is that going to be just?
That would be for approximately a 3-month period.
3-month period?
I think so, too.
During Phase 1 or 2?
During Phase 1.
Interesting. Dave, the last time we asked whether or not there would be weight or width restrictions westbound. On 24, we have 24-hour traffic, heavy traffic moving up to the mine. I understand you're talking with the mine directly. I don't know if there's any issues that have not been resolved.
We're going to be able to accommodate the mine through there. It's going to make sure we continue the coordination and inform them of what is happening when. The traffic switches will be happening frequently, but we've got a good connection, a good point of contact with the mine.
Okay.
And
Just want to make sure you're comfortable with that connection now, and I think so. Thank you.
we're confident we've established that relationship there.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
The stack.
Yeah. Just a couple updates. The stack is still continuing to focus on analysis of the new FAST Act. There are a couple new provisions of it that do affect us. One is the creation of the National Highway Freight Network, and with that, the National Significant Freight Highway Project grants. So it ties well into this new development of the Freight Advisory Council that has been formed in the state of Colorado. So we'll be looking at freight applicability in the Pikes Peak region. We've also talked about the Traffic Incident Management Teams establishment. This is teams that are for quick recovery of crashes and incidents on major highways, for quick recovery and removal of crashes and delays to traffic. One of the interesting statistics is that for every 10-minute delay, if you have a stoppage for 10 minutes, it takes up to 40 minutes to clear that stoppage. So even though roads are clear, you still got about 40 minutes of delay in congested traffic, even after the congestion's been cleared. So the idea is to get that cleared very quickly, and you eliminate those multiplier effects for traffic congestion. A new acronym, the Congestion Operations Bottleneck Reduction Activity, COBRA. COBRA. That's the teams that are involved in clearing those incidents. So if you hear that, you'll know what that is. And finally, last week, a week ago today, in fact, Governor Hickenlooper signed House Bill 161018, which we had a part in. We took a strong support position. This bill connects more strongly the stack directly to the Transportation Commission for direct input, not stopping by way of CDOT, but advising both CDOT staff and directly the Transportation Commission. I think it's a good thing. It improves their voice, and so we're looking for how that's going to actually work out in process. Any questions you've got on stack issues?
One comment I'll make for everybody is that if you have any questions for the stack, please extend them, sometime before the meeting.
Yep, Andy and I both normally attend them, so, and as well as Craig, almost all of us. And Craig, we appreciate your technical background there. So, thank you.
I try to attend them when I don't blow up my car on the way up there. Okay, next item is military installation reports. Colonels?
Ken Olson from the Air Force Academy. Nothing to report today. All right, Joel Hamilton from Fort Carson. I just got a couple things I'd like to just make everybody aware of. Fort Carson continues to be a globally relevant installation. It stays pretty busy right now as we speak. We've got soldiers out in 9 countries, 5 continents, and 3 states outside the state of Colorado. So currently the division has got a headquarters element in Baumholder, Germany, and they serve as a division task force there for a division headquarters task force for units across CONUS and OCONUS that are aligned with the European theater of operations. So, in fact, General Gonzalez gets on a plane today and flies out there to visit. So our Deputy Commanding General is out there commanding that element. 2nd Brigade Combat Team continues to push out of the ADAG out at Pete Field. And they are a brigade element about 4,000 strong that are scattered across the Middle East, so in battalion formations. 4th Cab, our aviation brigade, is got the brigade headquarters and a battalion plus that are just about 1,000 folks that are in Afghanistan right now, flying missions in support of those operations. And our 10th Special Forces Group is a revolving door of activity, and they're currently out in the Middle East, and I'll just leave it at that. 71st Explosive Ordnance Disposal, not enough of those folks in the Army or within the Department of Defense, for that matter. So they stay pretty busy, and they're scattered across the globe now as we speak as well. And then our Stryker Brigade and elements of our 4th Sustainment Brigade, our logisticians, are they make up what's known as the Global Response Force. So they are on a 24/7 string to deploy anywhere in the world, and as such, we've got a lot of things palletized, pre-staged out at Pete Field for in the event of those contingencies. The second thing I'd like to tell you is that the Army is no different than our sister services in that we are reducing our end strength of personnel, and so as such, we lose about 350 to 500 soldiers a month. Is what our attrition is at Fort Carson alone, and we're also assessing people as well, but not to the rate that we're actually attriting folks. And these are quality individuals that are being separated, and a lot of them are making decisions on their own to transition out and become citizens here in the city of Colorado Springs. So as such, to address that, we have several career skills programs that are in place to try to bring those individuals into our communities, the greater Pikes Peak area. We've got, for the Veterans Administration, a program called WARTAC, where it brings soldiers in to be advocates for the VA, supporting soldiers. We recently started our corporate fellowships through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, kind of targeted more towards mid-level and senior level folks that are transitioning out, and those are corporate fellowships that they'll then in turn they will intern with those corporations. And then we also have veterans in piping through the local pipe fitters union here in Colorado Springs, and that is a 12-week program, guaranteed employment anywhere in the United States, but a lot of them stay here in Colorado. It's a phenomenal program. Solar Ready Vets is something we've now on our 5th class. We started this last year, and that was bringing the mobile training lab from the Department of Energy from Golden, Colorado here. We work in conjunction with Pikes Peak Community College and teaching that course, and it's just an acknowledgement that that's a career field that is going to grow exponentially in the next 15, 20 years, and we get a lot of sun here in Colorado. So, and then lastly, commercial driver's license certification. We started that up with the Teamsters, and that class is getting ready to start next week. So, and then my final topic would be the recent wildland fires. When I left Fort Carson, it was not on fire. We have recently had the issue down south on the what is called the Turkey Creek area. About 923 acres were burned. There is such thing as good fire, and a good portion of that was good fire. We had a lot of the record rains in May and June, led to a lot of fuel, and we're seeing that up and down the I-25 corridor, obviously. So, as such, we thought it was wise to cancel the prescribed burns that were going to take place in the coming weeks. So it's a little too soon. So, anyway, that's all I have from Fort Carson. Thanks.
Thank you.
Rich Birchfield, representing Colonel Doug Shess from Pete. A few things. The first couple items really are on behalf of all the folks in uniform here. It's congratulations to Colorado Springs for winning the inaugural Great American Defense Communities Award. Glad to be a part of that, and I think that's just a great testament to what we have going on here in our city. So we're all glad to be part of that reciprocation or that package. Second one is for those who have been participating in the Community Partnership Initiative. We just received signature of authorization from the Secretary of the Air Force that we can engage with the county on the winter chemical ice buy. It's broken out by installation, and because of Colonel Hamilton's consistent involvement in this effort, Fort Carson is also included in that, with savings of up to $73,000 a year per installation, or over a 5-year period, stacked up. So we consider this the beginning of the opening of the floodgates, because as folks, Commissioner Heisey, Councilman Pico, even Colonel Hamilton, and the installations that are represented, we've got a list a mile long now of great ideas where we can collaborate, sharing resources, saving money. And we just needed that first one out of the gate to show it can be done. And the nice thing is it's a community-wide effort. So it is a complete team win, and we're really proud to say that we finally got this signature, and glad to move out on that. And just as a save-the-date reminder, on the 15th of April, we'll have the 50th anniversary of Shine Mountain, not NORAD, but Shine Mountain. More details to come. That's going to be on the Friday of the week of the Space Symposium. Separate events. Obviously, we're going to have some big shots in town, and we will get the word out to civic leadership of what's going to happen that Friday, and hoping to see a lot of you there to celebrate something that we're all proud of. So that's it from Pete.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for this opportunity and, of course, for your continued partnerships. Want to touch on a couple things on behalf of Colonel Byrd, our installation and wing commander. One is just a general thank you for this group and this team. We had over 50 attendees come to our recent State of the Base there at Schriever, to include multiple mayors and civic leaders. Just a great venue, great opportunity to lead and share. We're going to do several features, but looked at some different partnerships, and in the vein of what Rich talked about, multiple things we can do as far as MOU, MOAs, various partnerships under the P4 capacity. So we're just beginning to look at the various opportunities there. And again, because of the nature of where we are, we're very thankful for that opportunity. So you'll see a featured piece on the base in the Colorado Springs Business Journal. And for the folks here and for your colleagues that didn't get a chance to attend, there'll be a next opportunity to do so in September. And we'll make sure we socialize that accordingly. Lastly, I just want to say that we are honored to contribute to the city's strategic planning process, and we just wrapped up our own internal strategic plan, so we'll continue to farm that out accordingly and really share the vision of what Colonel Burt has and certainly what she's doing to set up that base for future success. And again, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Regarding the state of the base, would like to report for you to take back that when I left the state of the base message, I drove directly to Curtis and Falcon Highway, and the traffic has changed there because Curtis is now connected to Stapleton, which runs back around through Falcon. So when I talked to our DOT officials, they said, let's get a current traffic study, so that should be done in the next couple of weeks, and then the county will start addressing what that new traffic study shows, traffic count.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
And on that note, we continue to grow at Schriever. It's even within our DOD, it's little known. I get the opportunity to talk on behalf of the base quite a bit, and a lot of it is, hey, you're not an operating location at Peterson. So there's still the mentality that we are co-located and we're not an actual Air Force base and set apart with our own installation. So I'm sure my friends at Peterson have that growing sentiment as well. So we're doing our best to be great colleagues and great collaborative partners, but also understand the independence and the nature of the Air Force base and the standalone business of what we're doing out there. It's a shock to most people when we talk about the economic impact and that we're closing in on 8,000 people on that yard any given day. So I just want to continue to highlight those efforts there. And as we grow, which is a great thing, but we continue to look at the safety and concerns of that area writ large to include 94 and the traffic and the patterns in development. So I'll continue to raise those issues, but I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll report back to Colonel Burt with that. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other comments, questions? Executive Director's report.
Right. I'm going to start with continuing our military update. Joint land use study. We're still trying to get Schriever officially in. We're looking for one of those big Air Force signatures.
Okay.
We think our funding partner out in D.C. knows where that is, so she's going to try to free that up. But we continue to include Schriever, obviously, in the joint land use study. Joint land use study had the policy committee. Some of you were attended that, but also the first technical committee met. And so it's underway. The chair of that is down the end of the table. Thank you, Daryl. And so that next meeting is in May. In our packet, there's also a typo on the technical committee meeting. It is not meeting next week. So Joint Land Use Study Technical Committee is not meeting on the 16th. So folks that were going to attend that, you get the couple hours back for that, and we'll get that word out. Also wanted to touch base on our Area Agency on Aging. A couple things in the packet. The Yellow Book, those tens of thousands copies are being produced now. They should be on the street in a month or so. And so we normally publish that. A little bit different format this year, so when you get it, take a look. We always appreciate the feedback we get from everybody that takes a look at it. Also, we've been spending time and haven't had a presentation here, but at the workshop last Friday, Joe went through and talked about the audit that the State Unit on Aging does for our program. They had 26 items, and we've addressed, and they've concurred with how we have addressed the 26 items. So it was their first time for the State Unit on Aging staff with us, and they really added a few issues, but glad to say that they've concurred on our response to all of those issues. So I think it's clear sailing from here. Also, we've been meeting with the specialized transportation providers. Some are in the audience today, so we're still working on the regional call center for that. So stay tuned for updates on that. Next meeting we have with that group is this Friday, so we'll get some more information. We already talked about the Association of Defense Communities. That award was great to see in person. I guess the real unveiling is going to happen in June. It literally is one slide on a screen in front of 350 people, and they showed all 10 communities across the country. It was like, okay, we're waiting for, send Andy Merritt up there to get a trophy or something. But I think it was a great announcement, and certainly Gazette editorial. And looking at a former partner of ours, Peak Military Care Network, Kate Hatton, who started that here at PPACG, they're really instrumental in helping all the installations with transition. So really wonderful to see that program keep getting stronger. The last thing I have is seeing if Jennifer's. We have a new staff person, transportation planner, Jennifer Valentine.
Behind the post.
Are you behind
Come
the
on up.
post?
Come on up.
Come on, Jennifer.
Come on up.
See, I can't see through the post yet. So Jennifer has been here about a week and a day. She's working in Craig's program, so look forward to her coming to the microphone eventually with a topic within the program. So look forward to getting her engaged all across the board. So if you see her name on a memo, you'll know who she is. So thanks, Jennifer. That's all I have. I'll leave it at that.
A little concerned about saying you haven't seen through it yet. What's the program here that you're working on
I'm sorry.
to see through the post?
Yeah. I really don't want to knock the column down. May cause some trouble with the upper level. There's some pipes and other things in there. We looked when we renovated this room. For those who remember, it's been around 10 years. But yeah, we tried to get it down to the bare beam, but yeah, something about the structural engineer said, don't take that one out. Yeah, maybe mirrors or a camera we can look around the post.
You don't want to give the staff up there a sinking feeling.
Exactly.
Right. Transportation Advisory Committee, Jennifer?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. That was a good joke.
That was terrible.
Structural,
actually,
us engineers appreciate that. Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County, but also your TAC Chair. And good morning, Board of Directors. We had a great meeting on February 18th. A discussion item that went through the process last month was a action item this month. It was the TIP policy revision in regards to emergency relief funding. And we reviewed that. Staff put some language together. We made some recommendations, and the recommendation TAC for that language is in your packet today, and you'll see that later today as an action item as well. So we unanimously recommended approval of that item. We had an update of the TIP applications. At our meeting, staff provided us the scoring of those TIP applications. As a group, we decided that we needed to have a workshop to go over those scoring and have some discussions within the member jurisdictions. And we held that workshop yesterday. And as a result of that workshop, I think we'll have some good recommendations, as those TIP applications are an action item for us next month to make recommendations to this board. So I think we had a good collaborative effort by all the member governments and all the member entities that submitted applications. And I'm excited to have that item next month and make those recommendations, have those the TAC make those recommendations to you. There's a lot of good applications that have been made. Also, we discussed an administrative modification. This was an informational item, and had no issues in regards to that, and that's on your agenda today as an information item as well. We also discussed the 2016 TIP status report. Staff is working to put that document together to bring to the board, I believe, next month. And so they asked for information from the member governments and the member entities that have projects. So you'll be seeing that next month. Ms. Rachel Beck gave us an update on state legislation, and we provided her some input, and you'll be seeing those as well today. And one item that we have been kind of discussing as a TAC is, and one item that's on here and one item that's not, is a joint traffic count in the region. And all of the member entities traffic counts, and we've been discussing trying to look at a regional effort and combining those efforts to save some money, not only on traffic counts, but also pavement analysis, pavement condition analysis. So we anticipate there'll be some workshops with those member entities and their respective subject matter experts on that, and hopefully at some point we can work together to come up with something to save some money for the region. And then we had some discussion on CDOT priority projects and taking and whether they take into consideration PPACGs and member governments' priority at a local level, and we'll continue those discussions. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thanks, Jennifer. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, the CAC, Jen Ellinger.
You got Kevin instead.
It looks like Kevin.
I'm not Jen Nellinger. Kevin Walker, a lower-level functionary of the Citizens Advisory Committee, second vice chair, to be specific. We had a relatively quiet meeting last month. We heard from, we had the two items that took the most discussion were on your consent calendar today, and so thank you for approving those. We heard from El Paso County relative to how their planning effort, their major corridor planning effort, was going to build on the PPACG effort, and so we had a few questions around that, and those were answered. We had discussions around the TIP issues that you'll be hearing about today, all of which were adopted and passed. And we had a fair amount of discussion regarding bylaws revisions. Even though you just appointed our committee, we did actually meet. Actually, I did not meet, but our committee met, and so we had some discussion around that. We'll continue discussions and hopefully bring some appropriate changes to you shortly. And then we also had the same update from Rachel Beck on state legislation, and a lot of discussion around that, even though a lot of the discussion was about unrelated matters, but the state legislature is always a source of discussion. Anyway, I'll answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up, the Regional Advisory Council, Joanne Ruth. Joanne?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
She's behind the column.
Behind the column, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I am Joanne Ruth. I want to, again, thank you for being here and how happy I am to be a part of this group, so thank you. Our last meeting was a delightful and very informative and collaborative meeting. We had our providers here in the room filled with people communicating, talking, sharing, working on, there's an idea. I could work with you to talk about this particular problem in human services and aging. It was a very productive meeting, and I think we all felt like it was an extraordinarily good use of our public servants' time. So I'm glad that was able to happen. You may see on our report that I would just like to invite all of you, in a related matter, to the Pioneers Museum to see the new exhibit, City of Sunshine. Are you aware of this new exhibit? Oh, well, I could warm to the topic, but I'm not going to go that far. But I want you to know that the city of Colorado Springs, most of you may be aware, but maybe not, our first industry was sunshine and fresh air and our beautiful environment. And when you're wanting to treat illnesses and you're thinking about where can I go to have a healthy life, people came to Colorado. General Palmer came for that reason. And in 1871, and when he came, he touted it as the best place to live in the United States. And everybody believed him, and they came. They came with their illnesses, tuberculosis, which was called consumption, white plague, and they came ill, and they came some very wealthy people. Some of our city founders are people who came to recover, hopefully, from their tuberculosis. When these people came, they came needing care. And who was it to care? Well, it was the wives of the men who were coming to establish the community. Am I right? What do your wives do? They work in community efforts, don't they? Alongside with all of us who are in the functional developing our city together. So the women and said, we need caregivers, we need to know how to care, and what we need are to provide nurses. That leads me to a topic that particular exhibit, the City of Sunshine, Health in the Pikes Peak region, tells that story. It tells the function of why and when and where. What has not been told is the who and how that care was provided, and that's the story that has needed to be told. And that's what I have done. You see on our report that I have just published a book, and I want to invite you to come to the Pioneers Museum on Saturday and put all the pieces together, because it's what we're doing here. Same thing, folks. A little interesting fact, just briefly. Do you know who was the person who had the first case of Spanish flu in Colorado Springs? How did it get here? It was a young soldier who was with a group of his company, who was at Colorado College studying radio. And that was the first case. And were we ready to take care of that? We didn't know the Spanish flu was coming. Yes, because the city and county worked together to build a little hospital known as Observation Hospital. It was at the mandate of the state. And that hospital was ready to take that first patient when he first came. The first death from Spanish flu was also one of those young soldiers. He died of pneumonia. So I offer that to you as just a tidbit to share with you how we are all related. Roads, buildings, everything we do here in this room, I see it through a 150-year vision. You had no idea I was that old. So, that's what I want you to hear. We're doing the work of this community, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. Saturday at 2 o'clock. Now, any of you know what else is happening in the city? St. Patrick's Day Parade. So, yeah, all these events. So, if you don't make it on Saturday, please come back and visit that Pioneers Museum exhibit, City of Sunshine. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Sir.
Councilman Murray, please.
That's crazy to do it. It starts at the house. Oh, really?
On helping aging in Colorado Springs, the mayor was working on an initiative as part of a continuum of care, and Jan Martin is helping champion this whole process of making the city, and I assume it's regional, the city a better place to age.
Yes.
And hopefully you're familiar with it.
I am.
Up to it.
I am very supportive of this whole process, because you know what? We retire here too now, isn't it? We don't have tuberculosis, thank goodness. What we have now is aging. Sorry about that. It is a good thing. We've worked hard to get here, haven't we? So, are there any, was that your, okay, anything else? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. FCURE, Craig, Craig?
Pete? No, Pete. Pete
Was not Craig? Pete.
Pete for AFCURE.
Pete for FCURE. Yes, please.
It's a quick update.
Just a couple of things. At their last meeting, AFCUR approved and distributed this long project of resegmentation and analysis for the stream that there's for Fountain Creek. And it's live. And I believe it's on their website. So that's a long project. You've probably heard about this over many meetings. That's done at last. And that's a good thing. It'll enable AFCUR to look more accurately and more advantageously at many of the parameters that the state is holding their feet to the fire for. And on another note, AFCUR is very actively right now looking into applying for a grant from the Water Environment, that just escaped me, WERF, Water Environment Resource Foundation. I might be off, it just slipped my mind, to assist them in their efforts to provide some money to do more detailed analysis and take some of the burden off of the member entities to enable us to do more and better work to address the concerns of the state. So that's the long and the short of it for this month.
Anybody have any questions? It's probably the shortest AFCUR presentation on record.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, turning to action items, we have the TIP amendment, projects funded with emergency relief funding.
That's great.
That's correct.
Yep. Good morning. Craig Casper, Transportation Director. As foreshadowed, the requested action for this item is to amend the TIP policies and the MOA with CDOT, Memorandum of Agreement with CDOT, to allow emergency relief funding to go into the TIP as an administrative modification instead of going through the whole TIP process. Emergency relief funds have a very rigorous vetting process, and the funds, when they come to the region, they can't be changed to a different project or different purpose. PPACG's only role is to use the funds or not use the funds. With this change, the projects would be expedited. They'd go into the TIP within 24 hours instead of the month-long process the normal TIP process takes. But the information about the projects will still go through the process so that the board and all the advisory committees will still see what's going on. It's just that the action, contracting and stuff can happen a month sooner instead of going through our process. Information, like I said, will still come through. The CAC, TAC, and staff all unanimously recommend this change. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Yes.
No, I've just moved to approve.
Oh. Any discussion? Any comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye. Thank you very much.
Any opposed? The motion's passed. State legislation. Rachel. Big binder.
It's getting bigger all the time.
Good morning, Rachel Beck, Policy and Communication Manager. Jacqueline has just passed out the most recent version of our legislative tracker, which has a number of updates even since the one that you received in your packet. I'll just go through updates on some bills that the board has taken a position on, or some bills of interest, and then tell you about a few new bills of interest. As Norm mentioned, House Bill 1018 concerning Transportation Advisory Committee procedures, allowing the STAC to directly advise the Transportation Commission in addition to CDOT, has been signed by the governor. So that will become law after this session.
That's okay.
1138, general fund transfers for state infrastructure. That's the bill that extends the window of time that excess general fund money would be transferred to transportation projects under Senate Bill 228. The board had voted to support this bill, but unfortunately it was killed in committee and had a pretty short lifespan. Two additional bills that the board opposed. House 1205, motorcycle lane splitting.
Oh.
Clearly, I don't need to explain that one. You all remember.
Most of the board opposed?
That one was killed in committee.
Kill it.
As well as Senate Bill 11. That's the one that would have repealed the requirement that faster funds go to transit projects. It died in committee largely on a party line vote, with one notable exception, and that is Representative Terry Carver, our local representative, who has been in extensive contact with both members of this board, members of PPACG staff, and members of local government staff. She has been in touch continually, has reached out for input specifically on this bill in addition to other matters. And so it is for that reason we believe that she broke with her party and voted against that bill. So if you see her, please thank her for taking local input and acting accordingly. Senator Merrifield's bill concerning end-of-life options for terminally ill individuals has now been postponed indefinitely in both the House and the Senate. You may recall there was a version of that bill in both houses. And we're starting to see a lot of the bills that we're tracking move along. There are now 13 bills that we've been following have been postponed indefinitely, and 2 have gone to the governor. Some other items of interest, you may have heard in the saga of the hospital provider fee matter, there's a new wrinkle, and that is legislators and staff are now looking into the question that perhaps if that money is removed from the state budget, it would lower the cap, the TABOR cap, and that would mean that we would be at a net zero. So that's a new question that is being researched. We have not seen a bill on that matter, and probably won't until some of these issues have a little more resolution, but we do expect one this session. And then also on the coming soon list, we've heard some rumors that Transbond 2 proposal that would propose transportation projects on a bond issue. We've seen versions of this in the past. May drop this month. Commissioner Steen has heard a lot about this at CCI, I think, and at the STAC. So we are looking forward to seeing what form that may take. And then there have been a number of new bills that have dropped in the last 2 weeks, and I'll just go through 4 of them that are of interest to the board. The first is House Bill 1286. This bill would increase the income tax deduction for wildfire mitigation measures that homeowners perform on their property. You may recall that early in the session, the board voted to support a bill that would change the tax deduction to a tax credit, but it failed in committee because it had a significant fiscal impact. So this is a kind of a different take on trying to encourage people to do that work on their property. This obviously has huge effects on the urban wildland interface locally, but it can be expensive and difficult to get people to do this kind of work that can really make a difference in preventing fires. So this is another one that will attempt to provide an incentive for people to do that work. Questions or comments on that one before I move on? All right. The next one I'd like to call your attention to is House 1303. This bill was introduced last week by Representative Landgraf. It concerns regional transportation authorities and would prohibit RTAs from imposing sales tax on vacant land that is then annexed by a non-member jurisdiction. This one we had thought was largely of interest to the PPRTA board, but in discussing this in our executive committee at Agenda Prep, the executive committee felt that the whole PPACG board should hear this one. Staff has a number of concerns with this bill. There are a lot of unanswered questions. It appears to be a response to the issue in Fountain, where Fountain has annexed a piece of property adjacent to an RTA project at South Academy and I-25. That was about $20 or so million that the RTA put into improving that intersection. As a result, there's a new shopping center there with a Walmart and a Sam's Club. There is litigation over that, the question of whether that property remains in the RTA or not after an annexation. So these are all interrelated issues, but the bill leaves a lot of questions. For instance, whether it is retroactive, who would be responsible for determining if the land was vacant? Department of Revenue collects sales and use tax for RTAs. We might guess that they would then be the responsible party, but we don't know. It's unclear how far back in history the research would have to be conducted to determine. The bill stipulates that if the property never generated sales tax, then it would fall under this legislation. But that could require a lot of research. So just a lot of questions about what the implications are. In this particular case, for future annexations, this would affect all of the member governments in the Pikes Peak region. Questions or comments on that one? Yes, sir.
What I'm hearing is that there are a lot of questions and concerns from the executive committee, but we're already opposing the obviously, we feel very differently in the city of Fountain as to an opposition from PPACG in regards to this. I can see why PPRTA would be in opposition of this bill, but we feel there's a little bit of maybe conflict of interest as that goes along. We heard about this recently as well, so we're going to be looking into this as the city of Fountain as well, and I imagine you'll probably be hearing more from us as we kind of get this a little bit more vetted. But I do have some concerns about PPACG's stance on this particular bill, even hearing that there are questions that you guys aren't clear about either. So to jump to that point where we're opposing without having answers to questions seems a little...
I should clarify, Mayor, that staff is recommending that the board oppose this bill, but that decision is the board's.
Okay.
And the executive committee
It's
just
already
wanted
in
that
red
issue to
here.
come to the entire board.
That would, for me, if it's already in red here, it's already, the decision's already been made. So I guess that's more my concern.
Well, that's,
As far as
your point's well taken, is that the board has not taken a position. That is a staff recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Should we take a position on this one, or should we stand by? My personal recommendation is that we not take a position yet until the questions are answered, until something's a little bit more. Obviously, Colorado Springs would have considerable degree of concern, which might not be in the same vein as Fountain's stance. But any comments, questions? Mr. Murray?
Yeah, I have to agree with your position and the fact that I think a formal presentation on the ramifications of what we're just discussing, because again, it appears from the onsite it's a Fountain Vice PPRTA issue, when in fact, when you look at the bigger picture, this may affect quite a few of the properties and how you see these properties as far as integration into your environment. And again, there's a series of ripple effects, domino effects, if you would. And I think it would behoove us to have a formal presentation that resulted in a formal discussion. How much time do we have? And
Well,
then
I don't-
floor. Not now. I mean, propose at the next meeting, we have a formal presentation of the ramifications that would lead us to make some sort of informed decision that would assist all of us.
Who would you want that presentation from? The legislator who's proposed this bill?
From the people on staff who recommended this way.
Well, that's me and our executive director and a couple of others who are here today. So we can certainly do that at the next meeting. It's entirely possible that this bill will have moved through the process at that point. And it's also entirely possible that we will not have any more information. All we have to go on is what's in the bill. If there's an amendment, we could speculate as to what the implications of that might be. But that's the trouble with bills, is that unless it is clearly outlined in the bill, then it's up to all of us to figure out how that's going to play out after the policy is implemented. So we are generally in favor of bills that are pretty darn specific.
And I'd be satisfied with the presentation by our informed staff that led to their conclusion that we wouldn't support it. So I could see that as being a reasonable compromise or opportunity for us to at least have more information.
That is what I was intending to do today, so if there are specific questions maybe that I haven't answered, I can look into those matters for you.
Do we have time to actually launch into, how long would it take to make a formal presentation?
Well, I don't think she's prepared for a formal presentation, but she's got the information. This is the formal presentation.
Yeah, so what I'm looking for is a little more specific direction on
Is
what
it?
else you'd like to
Right.
know, and then I'd be
Okay.
happy to provide that.
Trustee Smith?
Is this something that the board needs legal advisement on?
The board has conferred, or I'm sorry, staff has conferred with our PPRTA attorneys on this matter. The PPRTA board will discuss it in executive session this afternoon.
Yeah, and that causes me to say that as PPACG, we should probably just watch this one, because it's already in the legal arena.
I guess that's a larger concern for myself as well. As everybody knows, this is in the legal realm at this point, and
Litigation.
I have strong concerns about this.
Yes.
Yeah, for PPACG board, you're not in litigation on this matter. I think what we looked at it from staff, and Rachel certainly can get into some of the details, is because the Pikes Peak RTA touches most of the local governments, we thought, and the executive committee thought, it should be brought to the board to say, if you read the 2 pages of the bill, does it cause any of you any concern? And so I think that's where we're at. And our opposition, as Rachel said, is more, it's unknown. We haven't heard from the other RTAs across the state. I mean, we're not the lead on this. We're trying to gather the information. What do other RTAs think about a change in the RTA law? What does the Department of Revenue think about the research that they may have to do? So there's so much unclear statements or unknowns within the bill. And so I think the suggestion of monitoring makes sense from this board, because it may or may not affect any and all of the local governments. So if you can take it back and think, well, does it? Because we have some local governments that are thinking that they may create an RTA in the future, a different one. There may be impacts to the RTA that's here. We just don't know. And so when we bring it up, that's what we're asking. If you want to monitor it, that's great. We can provide as much information as we know now, but we haven't heard back from the other RTAs. You'll remember when the other RTAs were doing the other bill to extend the property tax ability of RTAs across the state, the RTA board and this board looked at that too, to say, does that make sense? And you can all take a look at it from your local governments, bring it to here for a joint position, and if you can come up with one, great. If you want to monitor it, that's fine too. But Rachel can answer some of the detailed questions, but there's not a lot. It's only a 2-page bill.
Okay. Let's open up to any detailed questions. Any?
Yeah, I did, point of reference here, that I have an advantage of being new. I can ask all kinds of interesting questions. Now, as an organization that represents a whole series of governments, I thought one of our primary purposes was, as gentlemen and ladies, to sit down here and agree on a certain way of how we do business. And in this particular case, it appears that the process that we were using, both as RTA and as governments, was the fact that if in fact we put money against a project and somebody benefits from that project, that we don't kind of take it from each other and don't ensure that it goes back into the pot. Does that make a lot of sense? No?
Well, if I can kind of weigh in on it a little bit here, I think from the PPACG didn't put money into it, PPRTA put money into it. We're all kind of member governments. We all kind of have a view on that, and that's why there's sort of a distinction between PPACG and PPRTA. PPRTA is in litigation. So it clearly touches of interest to member governments here. Question is, do we want to take a formal position on it? I would recommend that we just watch for right now, because there's too many that we watch, because there are too many unanswered questions at this moment. But it's something we need to be aware of.
Okay. So it means it changes from red to yellow.
Clear.
Clear. Yeah, but I'd star it as a item of high interest. Any other further comments? Nope.
Just, what it means when we take a position. Rachel, you don't actively lobby at the State House, do you?
No, sometimes we send a firmly worded letter that is signed by the chair of the board to the committee that is hearing the bill, outlining the board's reasons for support or opposition.
Yeah, and that goes to the sponsor or either side positions you're taking on to the committees.
Mm-hmm.
But one of any position we take here does not preclude an individual government from lobbying on its own. We always have that opportunity, but when I've been to the State House, when the board has taken a official position, then I can say the board position is. I'm just conveying information on. So that doesn't preclude Fountain from taking an opposing view, but I would agree that monitor is a more appropriate position because we're a cooperative, collaborative group, not a, we aren't after each one another. That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
All right, the next one on the list is a long one. This is House Bill 1304, and it concerns community conversations on transportation priorities and funding options. There's a lot of detail in here, so I'm going to read through it to you, and it gives some specific assignments to people in this room, so you'll all want to listen for what you're being proposed to do. The bill would require CDOT to hold at least one community conversation in each transportation planning region of the state, no later than October 1st, 2016, where members of the public would discuss their top priorities for transportation funding and their preferred means of raising the revenue needed to fund those priorities. There's some specifics about who would provide notice of the meeting and when the meetings would be held. And then the bill proposes that the representative of each TPR on the statewide Transportation Advisory Committee must convene an open house meeting or a panel of individuals with expertise in transportation and economic development. The same representative of the TPR must lead the meeting or serve as the chair of the panel. That meeting or panel must also include any member of the Transportation Commission and any regional transportation director for CDOT, representatives of regional economic development districts, and each state legislator, county commissioner, and municipal mayor or council member, any of these people whose jurisdictions fall within the TPR would need to be at the meeting. After these community conversations are held, no later than November 1st, 2016, so that's a month after the deadline to hold the meeting, that same representative of the TPR who convened the conversation has to develop and submit to CDOT's executive director a report that ranks both the top transportation priorities for the TPR and the preferred means of raising the revenue needed to fund them. The executive director, in turn, must compile all the regional reports into a statewide report that ranks the transportation priorities for the state and the preferred means of raising revenue. And the executive director would then present that report before the commencement of the 2017 regular legislative session. So quite a bit of detail in this one. Questions or comments?
What's the likelihood of this progressing?
This has a number of sponsors, including the chair of the House Transportation Committee, so I would say it has a decent chance. And we've all had discussions here about, as well as at our transportation advisory committees and our community advisory committees, about how transportation projects are prioritized at the local level and at the state level, and if processes are meshing or not, and how do we fund them. So given that concern, again, I would say this has a shot.
It appears to be just another list of projects. And the mechanics of doing that kind of meeting is almost impossible, but we'll see where it goes. I think the Transportation Commission's aware of this bill, but I think our feeling was that it wouldn't get too far, but.
It seems redundant.
What's that?
It seems redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is the head of the TPR, by the way?
Well, the head of TPRs, if we're talking about TPRs and MPOs, so I'm representative for this MPO to stack.
Right.
The other, there have been 15 TPRs around the state, 5 of which of those are MPOs, as you know. Is it specific to MPOs as well?
No, just TPRs.
Just TPR. So this.
It's unclear whether we fall under that.
Yeah, Craig, I mean, I don't know if you can contribute here. I mean, a TPR is a transportation planning, which might be an MPO or a TMA.
We are actually the #1 TPR in the state. There's a list of them, and they're done 1 to 16, and we're the #1 TPR in the state. So we are a TPR. So it would pertain to us.
What's the boundaries of this TPR?
It's the MPO boundary.
Oh, is it?
So it's the western part of El Paso County and plus Woodland Park.
And the quarter.
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County. I just wanted to note for everybody here, too, El Paso County in and of itself is located in 2 the PPACG MPO, and the Central Front Range TPR. So just so that everybody's aware of that.
And if I understood when you ran through that, that was going to require everyone within those TPRs down to the councilman to individually hold a meeting and develop a report?
Well, it requires CDOT to hold the meeting, the TPR representative to convene it and organize the panel, and all those representatives that I mentioned
Which is pretty comprehensive.
are invited to participate.
Oh, invited to participate. Mr. Murray?
A question.
And then-
I don't see this as being directed against an issue that we have been involved in. So it leads me to believe that possibly we already are fulfilling all the requirements in this particular bill. Is that a correct assessment?
Not as I read it. I think what you're thinking of, the things that we already do is we have a public process, an extensive public process, I'll say, to come up with priority lists for our region. And we do submit those to the state for their planning process. We work with CDOT to do that. But this bill is specifying that CDOT will specifically hold meetings on these topics in each TPR, and that funding would be discussed with the public as well.
Trustee Smith? Did you have your hand up?
Yes. I was wondering how you and Norm felt about this bill. What, you know, you guys are involved in transportation. I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. It strikes, I don't mind putting you on the spot.
It strikes me as redundant because that's what we already do. The issue, you know, we develop all the priority lists. We kind of do all of that. Or the whole tip process is doing that. So that's why I'm kind of looking at that going, why do you want us, you know, it's asking CDOT to convene and duplicate the effort that we already do.
Yeah, I'm certainly open to open and transparent government. That seems to be the objective of the bill. But the process is already in place to do that. We have CACs and RACs and TAC, and we have public hearings, and every county board, every meeting that we all hold in our respective governments are public and open meetings. And I would expect that, you know, any time we always ask, you know, are there topics on the agenda? So.
Maybe we should have a bill requiring this legislator to come to the meetings and see what we already do.
Well, Max Tyler,
Max
Tyler, the chairman of this committee who's sponsoring the bill, knows that, and so I'm a little confused. I mean, I know Representative Tyler, and you know, I'm surprised that he's trying to impose another layer of information gathering, and how would once you have collected two sets of data, how do the two connect then at the top? And especially when you're talking about funding options. We have a very deliberative, very, very objective process for how that's done. So,
I think it's worth pointing out that you'd be in two different meetings because you're the Central Front Range rep too. Fun and games. Yes, Mr. Murray. Oh.
Well, one of the solutions when you look at these particular environments is to reach in and see if CDOT, as a comma, can certify alternative programs that fulfill these requirements. And if you allow them the opportunity to do that, and they are familiar with our program and things like this, they could just turn around and check our block instead of rebuilding this whole new structure. This way, this will benefit folks who don't do it, benefits us because we already have something in place that doesn't necessarily mirror specifically what this is, but as long as CDOT does it and certifies it, we should be good to go, and then everybody could be happy. Does that make sense? And just that one line, say they can certify alternative processes that fulfill these requirements.
Citizens want to come to a meeting.
Commissioner Isaac?
Does this carry a fiscal note?
Not at this time.
Unfunded mandate.
Okay.
Okay.
But with a fiscal note, I was going to agree with our transportation commissioner that I don't think this is going anywhere, but if they can do an unfunded mandate, great. You know, they'll support that.
The cookies. Trustee Smith?
Just a quick comment. Andrew offered to come out to Rama and meet with us. I mean, we're not exactly a metro area. And I said, maybe we could hook up and do a meeting between Rayma and Callahan, and he thought that was a good idea. So I'm sitting here wondering, if they're gonna come to Rayma, really, do you need something like this?
We just had a great meeting in Fairplay about the Highway 9 and 285, and they had Atkins, CDOT was there, and I mean, they were asking for local input. It's not like this stuff just comes out of nowhere.
Any recommendations? I have one, but any from the board? I would recommend we take a position to oppose it because it's duplicate of what the process that we're working.
Second that.
Yes, Mr. Murray.
I would disagree because I think we get more by assisting the process. And again, I don't see this as being directed against us. So unless it does damage, okay, and it's a process, and again, no cost, and then there might be some.
Yeah.
To the state.
It's going to cost somebody.
That would mean it would.
It's going to cost CDOT. I mean, they're going to have to send all these people these extra meetings and make all these extra meetings. It's not going to be free. All this stuff costs money.
Okay. Well, yeah, again, I preface by saying I see a simple solution that would not be egregious to us.
Well, my concern is that it's duplicating the process that we already have. In other words, it's putting on a parallel process on top of the enormous amount of effort that we developed it to.
Process vice directed at us, so thank you.
Come on up. Come on up.
Actually, didn't want to make one sentence, but I also wanted to make sure you saw the other hand that was up. So there was somebody else that was up.
Oh, okay.
Stan Vanderwerf, and I would agree with you. I don't see a reason for producing another layer of government. We got plenty of government already. If we have a process in place, let's just keep that and not make another one. If there's something wrong with the current activity, maybe there's a communication problem embedded in that. Let's just work on fixing that. Let's just work that, and not make another layer and another layer and another layer. And then I defer the rest of my time to the other hand that was up, if that's okay.
Thanks, Stan.
Thank you.
Kathleen?
Thank you. Kathleen Krager, City Traffic Engineer. I hate to be terribly paranoid, but I want to point out that the way money is divided currently, it's really federal funds coming to CDOT, and then CDOT divides it out to all of our regions and our MPOs and that type of thing, that I hold a concern that the state legislature might want to ultimately become more involved in this process so that the legislature could direct money to a major project that perhaps is not faring as well when it goes through the state process. This is a matter financially where the state legislature is really not providing any money at all for transportation. If you look at the budget, when it says transportation, the dollar amount is zero. And so I don't think that gives them much right to dig too far into transportation until they change that dollar amount.
Start paying for it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Motion on the floor, excuse me. I think we have a motion and a second. Anybody, any further comment? Motion is to oppose this particular bill on the grounds that it is a duplicate effort. Oh, I'm sorry.
Rachel, do you have any comments from other TPRs and how other groups are reacting to this?
No, I don't. It's a good question.
We get that? Because I just can't imagine anybody in the state that wants to go through this.
We can add it to the tracker, see if CML, CCI, or other TPRs have a statement.
I did check CML and CCI, neither has taken a position on the bill.
It's pretty new.
Yeah, this one's fairly new, isn't it?
Yeah. A week?
Mhm.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? One opposed. Okay.
Mine wasn't opposed.
Oh.
I am not opposed.
Oh,
It's got to be unanimous.
Unanimous pass. Okay. Thank you.
Those are all the items I had to highlight for the board. If there are any other bills anyone has a question about or wants to discuss, happy to do that now.
1303, where it was suggested to me position of opposition by staff and.
We heard monitor.
Okay, you did take an action on it? Okay.
Oh, 13, monitor.
Okay,
Monitor.
good monitor. Okay. Thank you.
I was going to say, I don't know that we took action on that. We talked about it. I would request that we do take action. As
Take action, well, if
to
we-
monitor, or do we need to?
I don't think we really need to, right?
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay, first information item, strategic planning process.
She's still there.
Oh, it's Rachel.
We planned something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board had started a discussion about a strategic plan for the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments last fall. We do not currently have an overarching agency strategic plan. Instead, we use specific and individual program plans to guide our work. So for the board's discussion, we had included in your packet a draft timeline and list of tasks that could guide such a process to develop a strategic plan. So we have submitted that for your comments, feedback, suggestions, deletions.
Any comments, questions? That was really quick. A process that we will be picking up a little bit more as we go on, obviously, so.
We just have this as an information item, so staff is not asking for any formal action, but it would be helpful to just get an idea if this is how the board would like to proceed. If so, next month we can bring back to you a cost estimate.
Trustee Smith?
When you talk about a strategic plan, I'm wondering if it would be proper to include some of the information that came down from JALIS because it similar issues and impact.
I think absolutely. I mean, I think the intent of the whole strategic plan is, since we've never had one here, is to try and pull all that together. And so the answer is yes. Commissioner Heisey?
On the cost issue, when the county did their strategic plan 5 years or so ago, we did receive some help, technical and whatever help from UCCS through Dr. Reddy.
Okay.
We did pay for some of that, but it was a far reduced rate than hiring a contractor.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
We'll note that our strategic planning team from the city is helping out on this, so.
Yes, I'm sorry, I neglected to mention that Nina Vetter, who headed up the city's strategic plan, has been very helpful. She took a look at this outline for me and said she was particularly pleased to see a lot of emphasis on implementation, and she also offered to share the research that the city collected of various strategic plans in the region, and in fact, she's already given me all of that, so I do appreciate that very much. That also saves us time.
Okay. So next time we'll be looking for cost and a little bit more of
If this
layout.
outline looks good to you, then yes, that will be our next step.
Any comments?
Well,
Additions?
these guys are doing a great strategic plan for the town of Alma, and I know it's not quite like planning for the Colorado Springs, but
No, it's more fun.
it's, we had a huge turnout at our last meeting, and I think it's really important to have a strategic plan for your organization, and the member governments are all required to have a strategic plan, and I think that it's a good idea for us to have one for this organization, too.
Thank you.
And I think you guys are the ones to do it.
We'll follow the Alma model.
Alma, okay, I'm not going to touch that one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. 2017-2022 TIP project submissions.
Good morning, everybody. Scott Phillips, Transportation Planner with Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. The item in front of you is an information item regarding the TIP applications and projects submissions for the 2017 through 2022 TIP. Just to give you a brief update, we have received 19 applications. The staff has scored the applications. Yesterday, we held a workshop with the applicants. Very wonderful collaborative effort working with everybody. and we will be moving that forward and bringing forward next month for the group the new tip for 2017 through 2022. The programming years for funding is for the years 2020 through 2022. We are programmed out through 2019. The 2020 through 2022 years brings approximately, or our estimate is approximately around $23 million in total, and that includes STIP Metro and TAP funds. Again, we'll be bringing forward the selected projects along with the rest of the TIP through the committees and to the board for according to the schedule that's incorporated into this staff report. Answer any questions for you, and if not, we'll look forward to moving this forward and bringing it to everybody next month.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Federal planning and programming requirements. Craig, back up again.
This is related to the last item. MAP 21 changed how we do planning and programming from, well, it made it a performance-based system. MAP 21 is expired, but we have FAST in its place. FAST reaffirmed MAP 21's performance measures, and we almost have the performance measures from at the national level. Not quite, we almost. After we get those performance measures, the state then will go through a process to adopt at least as strict a performance measure, possibly stricter if they want. And then at the MPO level, we'll go through a process to adopt performance measures at least as strict as the state performance measures, possibly stronger. Even though we don't have these national, state, or regional performance measures yet, the projects that we're selecting in our TIP have to make progress towards those performance measures. And we will be evaluated on at least an every other year basis to make sure that we're picking the right projects. So I guess that's just to provide information that the projects that we're going through the process that we have and are going through the process to pick may not be the projects that when we get out there that we will need to do to avoid having, and it is punitive. If you don't meet the goals, they take money away, which makes it even harder to meet the goals. The good news is they take away from CDOT, so not from us. There are 6 goals. Because we started our performance-based process before it became mandated, we actually cover in our scoring system all of the areas, but we don't know what the actual performance measure is going to be yet, so it's hard for us to tell. I will say that the performance measures are focused on the interstate and the national highway system, so that is where the expectation is that we'll be putting most of our money. I guess that's all I really have right now, because that's just about all we know. Like I said, the national performance measures are just about all out. The last one, I think they're scheduling to come out end of this month or next month. So.
Are those from FAST, or is those still
scheduled
from MAP 21?
They're still from MAP 21. It's still under the MAP 21 schedule, even though that's expired now. But FAST just reaffirmed it. So, any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Well, bringing us back.
Well, just to clarify, so the 19 projects that Scott talked about are evaluated on our 13 criteria, 6 of which are federal.
Federal, right.
We added some additional here, so that's the process we're going through right now. So okay.
Yes.
Just to clarify. For the
Yep.
board. Yep. Okay.
And they'd be scored against the federal ones as opposed to our local ones.
Well, actually, yeah.
Plus ours.
Yeah, so what we'll have to do is we'll have to change our performance measures in those 6 categories to match the state, which will match the federal, and we have to be at least as strict as the state, which has to be at least as strict as the federal.
What's the balance between the 7 and the 6? In other words?
The 6 are, well, they're listed on the second page. We have like stormwater runoff. We're more specific. Instead of environmental sustainability, we have an air quality goal, a habitat goal. We have some community impacts, try to avoid splitting communities. Economic development, we're more on putting investments that serve designated redevelopment areas. The federal goal is all about freight, and we don't have a lot of freight. We're a pass-through area, so.
But is there any mandate on the weighting between
No,
those?
there's no, just that we have to use those and achieve the performance measure that is given. So if, it might be 90% of our NHS system pavement is in good or fair condition. So we need to put more money into the NHS system to meet that sort of thing. So, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
And last item on information, Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 4, tip 14, excuse me. Mr. Phillips.
Sure. Again, Scott Phillips, Transportation Planner, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. This is in front of you. Is just an information item only. This is administrative modification number 14 to the 2016 to 2019 TIP. This is a roll forward from the previous TIP. These are it's $190,000 in total, which equates to 2013 funds of $40,000 from FTA 5304 program, as well as $112,000 from the 2014 FASTA program, and it also incorporates a $38,000 local match. The amendment or the modification has been approved by the Transportation Director, and it has been entered into the TIP. This is just for your information purposes to let you know the action has been made. And if you read the paper yesterday, the MMT is already moving forward and has made the announcement the funds will be utilized for a transit station study. So any questions? More than happy to answer them for you.
Any questions?
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving right along. Member entity announcements. Have anybody want to bring anything
I want
up?
to make a statement.
Yes.
This staff.
Is the recorder on?
This is important.
Only if his
It's a
light's
really
on.
important statement. Rob, you and your staff are doing a fantastic job. I think today's presentations were awesome, and these guys are real professionals, and we're lucky to have them. Thank you, Rob.
Colonel Richfield.
And he already paid his dues, so that's good.
I just want to add one note for that community partnership initiative we talked about and the recent success we had with that chemical bulk buy. A lot of us know Monty Gore, who worked for the county for quite a while. He's retired now, but if you happen to bump into Monty, if you could pass on to him this success, because he was really the workhorse behind that particular effort, as a lot of us know. And it's one of those things you don't get to see the fruits of all your hard labor, but he really kept the community focused on that one, and what it's going to really do is open up the floodgates for more partnership. So if you happen to see Monty, if you could tell him thanks, he deserves a pat on the back for getting that started. Thanks.
That's right. Yes, sir.
One alibi. When I talked about the wildland fire, I was remiss. I did not thank, through a lot of the mutual aid agreements that we have in this community, just the incredible amount of support that we continue to enjoy from El Paso County and Fountain in terms of the fire departments that responded, Cheyenne Mountain Air Station. And that reciprocates both ways, and it's just phenomenal. And again, it speaks to kind of what was mentioned earlier about the greater American defense community and why this is such a great place to live and work. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Colonel. Yes.
Tacking onto that, as a captain on our local fire department in Green Mountain Falls, we also appreciate the training opportunity that
Right.
your prescribed burns provide our region, and the interagency collaboration is invaluable, so we appreciate that as well.
Okay. Any other member announcements? Okay. You have the meeting schedules in your packet. Any questions? Any final comments? Is this a record for adjournment?
That's a record.
No? Pretty close.
It's good.
Yeah, bang the gavel for. Stop.
We're adjourned. Yeah.
All right, all right.
It's all right. I'm like, what's the big deal, man?
Yeah, yeah. We'll check.